Thank you for downloading the PR Week, PR Week's weekly podcast. For more podcasts as well as breaking news, visit prweek.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PR Week. That's PR Week's weekly podcast for everything going on in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Frank Washcook. I'm the news editor at PR Week, and we have an all-star cast, as always, for our weekly podcast. I am here with Todd Barrish of Indicate Media. Todd, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
And you were just mentioning you're a veteran of this neighborhood and just walked over from a conference.
Yeah.
Weather is finally starting to change.
Yeah. It's actually beautiful outside today.
It is. A little windy, but it's okay. And of course, Diana Bradley is here with us. It is her birthday, listeners.
Happy birthday.
I promised her I wouldn't. I
this.
promised her I wouldn't embarrass her, but I guess I lied about that. So, everybody,
Thank you.
if you are in our comments section, make sure to wish Diana a happy birthday. And tag her on Twitter with happy birthday wishes.
Awesome.
All right, let's get to the serious stuff. So, Todd, tell us a little bit about your firm and the types of clients you work with.
Yeah, we are a boutique agency. We're located downtown.
Mm-hmm.
We are mostly a B2B tech agency. We do a little financial services, and we dabble a little bit in the energy markets, mostly because I think energy is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But my roots, founding the firm started in technology.
Okay.
And we have a majority of our clients are tech, mostly on the business side, mostly software.
Okay.
Whether that's in the cloud or AI or we're watching the drone market, and so business is very good.
Now, how long have you been in business?
We've been in business a little over 6 years.
6 years. So what made you decide to start your own firm?
Yeah, I came to New York actually in my head thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Virginia, and when I graduated from college, it was get married. I had a longtime college girlfriend who she was great, but I was in my early 20s, and I had a buddy who said, come sleep on my couch. And I had $250 in my pocket and, a desire to see something or do something bigger. And I came to New York and I'm thinking, I'm not sure what I was going to do, but knew it was going to be something in the communications realm. Mm-hmm. And, it was at the top of the dot-com boom, and things were crazy, and I went on.
So what year was this?
This was in 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, right in 2000. So I went on, several interviews, and I got a job, I took a job for Conan Wolf in a large PR agency. The reason I took the job for Conan Wolf in the tech department is the person who interviewed me, I was amazed by her. She was just the smartest person I'd met. She knew so much about tech and the world, and I thought, I'm going to learn a lot from her. Mm-hmm. And so I took that job, and it set me off in the path to public relations and communications. And I hit a point about 10 years in where I was ready. I was ready to, take everything I learned and roll the dice. And my thought was very simple. It was, well, if this doesn't work out, the worst that's going to happen is I just need to go get a job.
To be back in your early 20s.
Back in my early 20s.
And no pressure, right?
No pressure.
So what did you think, when you moved to New York, what industry did you think you were going to be working in when you got
I actually thought it was going to be more on the marketing. And if it was in public relations, I had, grandeur of entertainment or even book or things that sizzle. I didn't really know anything about technology at the time or what business to business meant actually. Mm-hmm. So that's what I thought. But quickly I realized that there's a world and an ecosystem and the world that's changing drastically because of digital. And so once I went down the path, I never looked back.
I had dreams of being an astronaut once,
Yeah.
but wasn't meant to be. Yeah. Could say the least. Okay, so back to you though. What's that?
Mountie.
Well, I'm not Canadian, so that presents a bit of an issue, doesn't
challenge
it?
for that one.
Yeah,
I could have been a great Mountie though.
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
I can see you in the hat.
Yeah, and the red outfit.
The red outfit. Yeah.
Riding a horse
Okay.
and whatnot. Anyway,
That's right.
back to you, more importantly.
Yeah.
So, so you move up here. It's 2000. It's the dot-com
2000,
boom.
the dot-com
You go
boom.
through the dot-com boom. Were you shaken a bit by that? Did you think, what have I possibly done? I've tried to start a career in tech, and it's all going under.
Yeah, so there was at one point where I think of the 17 people in the tech group, 15 of us were let go on the same day.
Wow,
that was kind of an eye opener. And and it was a point where I thought, well, maybe I made the wrong call. Should I be here, because I didn't have any money, so it's very expensive when you get laid off and you're just a kid,
and especially in New York. Sure,
especially in New York, but. I decided that I wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to leave. That I was going to keep my head down and go get a job. Now, quickly after that, September 11th happened. So once again, I did double down on my thinking of, am I in the right place at the right time? But, the city came together in such a magical way after that. And, I was here and part of thinking that we can be better and do better, and I can be better and do better. And, led me down the path.
Okay, but you get let go from Conan Wolf.
Yeah.
So what's next for you after that?
I took a job at a really cool shop, actually, called Connors Communications.
Okay.
By a lady named Connie Connors, a really smart lady who owned a firm. I think she disbanded it at this point, but she owned it for years. And I saw some cool things happen at Connors. I'll give you a quick story. We had two quick stories. We had one guy come in and he said, "I'm going to revolutionize travel." We said, "You're going to revolutionize travel? How are you going to do it?" He's like, "Well, we're going to let people go online and purchase their airline tickets." He's like, "But the catch is, when they put in their credit card," and we were thinking, wait, people are going to put in their credit cards online? He goes, "When they do, it's an opaque model. They're not going to know what they actually get." And we thought, really? Well, how's that going to work?
I mean, how opaque are we talking here? Do they know their destination at least?
They knew their destination, but they didn't know their flight times at all, or even the airline. And so this company turned out to be Priceline. He was exactly right, right? And so we actually launched Priceline and took them, a long way. I had another guy come in who said the same thing. He said, "I'm going to revolutionize the phone industry." We thought, well, what does that mean? Ma Bell's been around for 100 years. And he's like, "This technology called voice over IP." And we said, "Well, tell us about this technology." And he's like, "Well, it's digital packets that are going to run over the internet, and it's going to go house to house, and it's going to change everything." And we said, "Tell us more." And this guy was named Jeffrey Citron, the CEO of Vonage. And we took Vonage, out into the world. And so that really showed me.
So you worked with some interesting clients, for sure.
Fascinating along the way. Really lucky, actually.
So let's fast forward a little bit. What made you decide to want to go out on your own?
Again, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think, when all my life I wanted to do something. I mean, in college, I was an entrepreneur with a bunch of friends of mine. We actually started a fraternity. That was the job, right? And so coming to New York, that never left. And the reason is because I think that, you put your mind to something and you develop processes and you can build a cool culture together, that there's lots of opportunities. So for me, it was just about when. And after a little stint in Costa Rica for 3 months before I started the firm, I was ready.
What about the idea of having your firm in New York versus the Valley, or there are tech hotspots in Virginia where you're from, and other parts of the country. I'm thinking of the Research Triangle in North Carolina. Why does it work for you here?
Well, I'll tell you. Along the way, over the past 6 years, I have actually thought, is New York a detriment to the model? Because it's New York, where there's a lot of regional plays that you can be very successful. To your point, but for me, the play has always been New York because it's where I was, where I am, where I'm married now and I have a kid, and where we're raising our kid today. And so I think it's a great opportunity to expand from. So for me, am I always going to be in New York? Well, maybe not personally. Indicate Media will, and maybe there's a regional play past that we talk a lot about. But New York is the
but
city that never sleeps.
when you say the New York is the play, what are the advantages? Specifically in the tech
I think there's a lot of advantages. I think in the forefront of listen, people are networking everywhere, but a lot of the buying decisions, purchasing decisions are happening here. There's a lot of software companies. Silicon Alley is very prominent. Not that it's not on the West Coast, but I'm playing the cards that I've been dealt. And there's tremendous opportunity here, and it keeps getting better. Also, what we have found as a small company is, for us, New York has been a gateway from international firms. So we've worked with a lot of Israeli firms, we worked with a lot of Australian firms, we worked with several companies throughout Europe, because they come in through New York. Why? Probably because it's the financial capital of the world, or or at least at one point of the world. And by being in the financial capital of the world, you're also in the know. And being in the know actually makes us smarter.
What are the downsides of being in New York and working specifically on B2B tech?
Yeah, supply and demand.
Yeah.
This is it's a commodity business. It's a supply and demand business. When markets are good and there's a lot of demand, we're doing great. When it's the opposite, it's harder. So that has certainly been a challenge. And then I also think that finding great talent is a little bit more of a challenge. And the reason is because to hire good junior people, smart junior people who want to make public relations a career, we find that they're a needle in a haystack. Not that the millennials are not great people. They are, and they're so smart, and we learn from them every day. But what we find is a lot of people come to New York, and the job is not their main focus. The job is secondary to living the New York lifestyle. I did it myself. Go out, have fun, have drinks.
I never did that.
Right? Nope.
No, not once. Anyway, sorry.
Right? So we're constantly looking to find the needle in the haystack, people who have the aptitude
but
to learn.
To play devil's advocate about that, there are PR programs and marketing programs at universities are just pushing out tons and tons of graduates now, more than ever before.
Sure.
I mean, do you see something that they're not teaching that they should be, or what do you lack of drive? Where do you see it?
No, I don't think it's lack of drive, but I will tell you that, and I've studied this actually extensively. I've actually been on the board of a university in Virginia. A lot of these programs that around the universities, the communication programs, they teach a lot of theory, but business is not a requirement, not even Business 101. So what we find is a lot of people come out and they're very smart with understanding why somebody might communicate, but we're in the business of promoting businesses. Even if you're in entertainment, a Hollywood figure is a brand. And if you don't understand the basics 101 of a balance sheet, supply and demand, why a stock moves, we find you're a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Because that creates a better strategy.
I think that's a good point, because if I'm thinking back, and this is a while already, but when I was in undergrad, the communications graduates came out of the liberal arts school, and the marketing graduates actually came out of the business school, which is interesting. There's a divide there, right? And I don't know if they've revised that since then, but you would hope they've looked into it, because there's a lot of connection there.
Yeah, and I think they are looking into it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I sat and was involved in a university, we pushed that hard. And what you're finding now is actually the higher ed model is completely being turned up on its head.
Yes, yes. Okay, so Indicate Media, you mentioned you work with mostly B2B tech clients.
Mostly tech, yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I want you to talk a little bit about drones. So what are you seeing in the drone space, and how does that translate to what you do?
Yeah, so actually the drone space is fascinating. Now it's still very scattered.
Okay.
I mean, you have companies that build drones, right? But there's still a lot of rules and regulation that need to be worked out for how you fly them. There's not necessarily conformity across the software, right? Software isn't built to a standard, which means one drone company might be operating one way and another drone company might be operating another way, right? Which can create disaster in the air. And so it's a market that's just ripe for, but what do we know? We know that drones can create efficiency. We know that drones can save lives. I mean, we just looked at a company that basically builds a drone in a ball. And the reason that they build it in this ball is it allows it to go into places, and as the ball hits the walls, to look for survivors of earthquake and stuff, it doesn't crash, right? So the potential for this is fascinating, and the potential from the hardware side, from the software side, is fascinating.
So something like that, the business case would be to use it, search and rescue.
Search and rescue, government, exactly.
What are some other interesting business case, some real world uses for drones that surprised you since you've been working in B2B tech?
Well, I would lie if I wasn't fascinated by the whole Amazon model of delivering things in 2 hours from the air.
Do you think we're going to get there?
Yeah, I do think we will get there in some form or fashion.
Okay.
What it looks like, I don't know. I think everybody's still trying to figure that out. I think when you have a behemoth like an Amazon of the world who has the time and the resources to figure that out, things will move forward. So that excites me. And also, what excites me about drones is the cloud and how information is stored in the cloud. and how that will create more efficiencies, whether it's retail delivery or disaster recovery. We like it.
Give me one thing that you wish you had known before you were starting your own firm.
Taxes.
Taxes. Okay.
The tax system is, it's actually a timely comment, right? But the tax system is complicated. And, my wife and I now live in Hoboken, and we have to understand, why
Two sets of state taxes.
We have to understand why we pay into Hoboken, and there's New York City and New York State. And, I'm not, against taxes. I think they're an important part. But for me, the hardest part is trying to understand what it all means, because I'm a curious guy, and I like to understand down to the detail. And that is a constant challenge. You get these letters from the IRS, and and then you have to call the accountant and say, "What does this mean?"
And of course, the whole system might be different by next week. Not by next week, but it might be in place to be different.
There's hearings today, I hear.
Yeah. Okay. Diana, why don't you give us a bit of a rundown on the week's biggest news stories from PR Week?
Sure. Mars is giving 4...
This is a really interesting story.
Love this stuff.
It is.
A really interesting story. Go ahead.
Sure. Mars is giving 4 agency groups a test run on global assignments for its individual brands. So this is the first time the company has handed global contracts to communication shops. So London-based Freud's will work globally on M&M's and Seeds of Change. Omnicom PR Group.
And what is Seeds of Change, dude?
I think that so we were looking into.
Are we open to samples?
Isn't it rice and things like that?
Okay. I like rice.
Yeah, I think it's rice. But that's...
Sorry, I heard M&M's first, and it got my mind going.
Okay. Sorry. So Omnicom PR Group's working on Orbit and Extra. Edelman's working on Skittles. Weber Shandwick is working on Pedigree. The test period's beginning next year and running for 18 months to 2 years. And Mars is hoping the strategy will maximize the reach of existing campaigns and help it execute new PR-led platforms globally. They're testing 3 concepts with the structure. One is whether it makes a difference when an agency has a global role and a market role. Mm-hmm. If there are benefits to a PR agency being more closely connected to a creative firm, and how successful PR-led ideas and a communications-led brand support model can be, as well as PR in a supporting role.
So, Todd, what are your thoughts and your reaction when you read a story like this?
I actually think it's great. Listen, it's really smart to further integrate, align the PR with the creative. Right. And really what they're saying is, we're going to bring everything into one place, and we're going to look at it holistically. And this is a world about data. Mm-hmm. And you better believe Mars and the agencies they work with have good software technologies that tell them interesting things. Mm. And then this is a world. If you can understand the data, you can find the unknown unknowns is what we like to call them. And when you understand the unknown unknowns, you can sell more product.
That's a very Rumsfeldian statement there. Okay, all right. Story 2, Diana. Tell us more.
So the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity is implementing several fixes next year. To reduce overlap among Lions, the festival will gut more than 120 subcategories and retire the Cyber, Integrated, and Promo and Activation Lions. It's also regrouping related Lions through a track-based system. The PR Lions will sit within the Reach track, alongside creative data, social and influencer, direct, and media, but maintain a dedicated PR jury.
So a couple thoughts about that. It's a little bit controversial that they're in the Reach, that the PR Lions are in the Reach track, and instead of alongside the other more creative categories, shall we say. That's a little bit controversial when you get a reaction from people about the story. But I think some people are relieved there's going to be an individual PR jury like there has been in the past. The big question, I think, is are PR firms actually going to win a bunch of Lions this year, or is it going to continue to be dominated by the creative shops? So it's something to watch going forward.
Yeah.
Any thought? Have you ever been to Cannes, Todd?
I have one time.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a lot of people talking to themselves at the time.
Okay.
And I think that's the need for this big change.
Did you think it was bloated? Did you think it was too big?
It was a little bit ridiculous. There were 1,001 different tracks. Everybody, there was too much noise. We thought the return on investment wasn't so great. Now this goes back a couple of years, but But I think what they're doing is great. And we've seen this happen before. I mean, CES, when Microsoft pulled out in the early 2000s, they realized that they kind of needed to regroup. But they're smart. They're going to refocus the tracks, I think bring them down to 9 or something.
Right.
You know, they're going to lower the price so it becomes more affordable, and it's going to give people a better chance to create a return for their investment.
Right, and of course, a lot of this depends on the reaction of the big holding companies. You know,
Yeah.
Publicis has said they're coming back in 2019.
Yeah.
You know, WPP's had a bit of a more muted
Yeah.
response to it, not exactly enthusiasm. So, got to keep an eye on that. I mean, it's interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Diana.
And then the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has issued an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract for communications and outreach services worth up to $900 million.
That's million with an M. Like
That is million with an M.
I'm doing the Dr. Evil thing here. Anyway, that's IDIQs are really interesting, aren't they? I mean, because you know, firms can put a lot of money into pitching for them. They can win the opportunity for a lucrative business and then just not make that much from and actually end up losing money. So that's a really interesting thing. We'll be watching to see who are the incumbents on this. There are 5, I want to say.
The incumbents are.
Copious notes, folks.
Yes. Let me see. It says Ketchum, Ogilvy, Porter Novelli, and Weber have been awarded IDIQ contracts twice by CMS. First in 2006 and again 5 years later. Fleshman and Hillard was added to the agency roster in 2011.
Right. So, I mean, obviously there have been a lot of changes to government spending in the past year. We'll see if they stick with those 5, if they cut back, if they expand it. We'll see. Interesting stuff.
Definitely.
All right. And the next story on the agenda, Diana, who is sending this back to me, is the Alabama special election. Now, you're a professional communicator.
Yeah.
When you see this story developing
Yeah.
in the news, what are your thoughts on it? Because it's such a it's just a mind-blowing story because the allegations are so incredibly serious.
Yeah.
They go back a while.
Yeah.
They go almost into the realm of the unbelievable with these stories about a Senate candidate being banned from malls at one point in his life.
Yeah.
Calling high schools, things like that. I mean, it's a very serious list of allegations. I mean, how do you, when you're a professional communicator and you look at the media coverage of it, what do you think?
Well, I think that this story, I actually think this is the most interesting story of the week. I mean, there are huge national implications for what's about to unfold in the next, several weeks.
Right.
Because the truth is, it seems like he is, going to get elected. There's not enough time for a write-in campaign. And there are no rules when he gets elected to tell him you can't shut the door on him in Congress, right? So he actually has to get expelled from Congress.
Which hasn't happened since the Civil War.
Hasn't happened since the Civil War. There hasn't even been a case since the 1900s, right? But what I think this does is it sets the framework for what happens with impeachment, and that is a very interesting thing. And from a communications perspective, what you're going to see is how two sides come together and strategize. Now, but by the way, there is no procedural process for expulsion, right? It means it could last forever. It's not a certain day or a certain time. And that means two sides are going to have to strategize on how they communicate. We're going to have to understand how the public accepts that communication. Yeah. We're going to see how the world accepts it. It's fascinating.
And not to mention, just in terms of an agenda, the Republicans would much rather be talking about taxes, and they'd much rather be talking about health care, I think.
Of course.
As long as they would be making some progress on it.
Of course.
And this delays all of that.
This delays all of it. It delays all of it, but it does put two parties, in the work.
Kind of the same boat in this, and that nobody wants him. So the Democrats don't want him for obvious reasons because he's of a different party, and the more establishment wing of the Republicans don't want him either, which leaves the Bannon wing, as it's being called more often now, of the Republicans as the main supporting group.
That's right.
An interesting thing I saw about it yesterday was that the National Republican Senatorial Committee, they released a poll showing him down 12 points in Alabama, which a Democrat being ahead by that much in Alabama leaves you scratching your head a little bit. So I think it's something to watch going forward.
For me, polls leave me scratching my head these days.
Yeah. Well, after last year, who can blame you?
Who knows what a poll actually means anymore?
Right. All right, folks, that's about all we have time for this week. I hope you will come back next week where we will be talking about my dash dreams of becoming a Mountie, among other topics. And I want to thank Todd for being here. Todd, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Glad
guys,
we
for
had you
having
on
me.
this week.
I appreciate it.
All right. We will see you next week on the PR Week.